bend this over at the end. So what that means is if you pull it out and it's not got a bend in it, then you know you've eaten it with your transfer port. Medic. Hello everybody, I'm finally getting back to doing some work on the TZR. It's really hard to keep motivation on this, but I'm in the garage today and we're going to do some work on it. I did a leak test, the last video I did on the TZR, which shows you how to do a leak test on a twin, which is very different from a leak test on a normal single cylinder. Now, I said, right, that looks good, I'll just leave it there. So what we've done here is we've shown that both cylinders are gas tight and that there is no leak between the two cylinders. So I left it there and I came back to it and all the pressure had gone out. So I've done a little bit of investigation and I know where the leak is. So I'm going to show you the leak test, show you where the leak is, and then I'm going to show you how to fix it. Now, spoiler, it's the base gasket. It's leaking out of the base gasket. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to check the squish. Because this is a very important metric on a two-stroke and it's quite hard to do it. Well, it's quite hard to get it right anyway. I've found trial and error many times, it's not easy to get it right. So I'm going to show you how to check the squish, and then we've got a couple of base gasket options, and then we'll see which one is the best. Let's get the bike out and do some work on it. Okay, let's get the soapy water and I'll show you where the leak is. There you can see that's where the leak is. So it's coming from the threads of this bolt. And that's the base gasket. So let's take this head off. Oh, sorry, let's take this cylinder off and have a look at it. But first, I'll show you an easy way to measure the squish. In order to measure the squish, the easiest way to do that is with a piece of solder. So, get yourself some solder. This solder is very thin. So less than 1 millimeter. Now in a standard trim your bike will probably have more than 1 millimeter squish, so get some thicker solder. This one is bigger. You'll also need just a pair of snips just to cut the solder, spark plug spanner, and then you'll need a number 0 paintbrush. I'll show you how to use that in a minute. So let's get both, even though I'm going to be testing the squish on this one, let's get both spark plugs out because we need to turn the engine over it and it's easier without compression. So with that out, I'll explain the purpose of the paintbrush. What you want to do to measure the squish is you want to get your piston almost to the very top of the cylinder. If you don't bother doing that, then when you put the solder, which is going to go in the spark plug towards this side or this side of the cylinder head, if you poke it in and you haven't pushed the cylinder all the way forwards, then you run the risk of jamming this down a transfer port, and then when you kick the engine over you'll just slither off some solder into your transfer port, so that's not great. So I'll show you how to do that. So get your stick in. Now you turn the engine over and just use the kickstart, There you go, you can see that's just gone a little bit over, so I'll back that off. There you go, you see that's now top dead center, and then that's going down, keep the pressure on that, down, then back up. So just about there, so just give it a tiny little gap. So what I like to do is just bend this over at the end. So what that means is if you pull it out and it's not got a bend in it, then you know you've eaten it with your transfer port. And then get it in the spark plug hole. Get a feel for where the edge is, and then just kick over. When you take it out, you'll see that's not at all squashed. So what we need to do is we need to use the slightly thicker solder. Just put a little bend in it. And reset. Now you can definitely feel that chunky, and you can see there that is now squashed. So we can measure that. Let's go up to the bench and I'll show you how to measure it correctly. So we've got a nice bit of squished solder here, and the way to measure it is using calipers. But before you go and measure it with calipers, and measuring is actually a really hard thing, practice. And a good way to practice, it's on a similar size, is got these feeler gauges here, and this one is 0.8 millimeters. So I should be able to just practice how much pressure it needs. So it's actually showing us, I'll get it in the joules there. There you go, about, it's all over the place. See how important it is to practice. So that's about 0.8 there. Now, if I measure what I've got here using the same pressure, I've got 1.08. So that's a little bit higher. What we can do is we can swap the base gasket for about 1.1. So we can swap the base gasket for a 0.5 millimeter base gasket, which should bring that into a good range. Let's get the cylinder off and we'll have a look. Okay, so we have to take the power valve out first.
I do not like the sound of that.
So I need to put the engine at bottom dead center. So the piston is right at the very bottom, and then I can get the power valve out. Medic. And the soapy water. There you go.
We've got another one now.
Perfect. Get this power valve out now. Should be able to just turn it round and then it comes out. Well, it looks absolutely terrible in there. There's a lot of oil running very rich. That's okay. We can sort that out. I mean, I did run the oil pump very rich as I'm starting to run it in, so when I put the bike back together I can square that away. And also I am running
2 sizes up on the mains, and we'll work out on the dyno what size, but it's better to have too much rather than too little and go lean. But PowerValve's look in good condition apart from the muck on them, but we'll clean that up later. We need to remove it so we can get access to that bolt, because with the PowerValve in you can't get anything on to take this off.
So when it comes to removing the nuts on the cylinder, I'm opting for these wall drive sockets. Now I don't know if you can see that, but if you compare that to like a standard socket, you can see that the standard socket, if you were to put a nut in there, only grips such a tiny part of the nut, whereas the wall drive socket grips the entire thing, so much less likely to round the nuts off. So 10mm for this, so I've got a 10mm one there. Do need an extension to get in there. And you don't need a torque wrench to undo it, but I'm using one because it's going to make it easier.
Okay, so there's the base gasket there. That's the cylinder here, looks good. So we need to get all these surfaces clean and free of all this debris before we can put the new gasket on. But let's get the old gasket off.
Right, so that took quite a while to clean that up. We got 2 gaskets, 0.75 and 0.5. So what I'm going to do first, because I couldn't measure the size of the old gaskets, I believe they were 0.75. So we're going to try 0.75 on, and that will fit on there like that. Because these are not paper gaskets, it's actual gasket material that's got rubber impregnated into it. We don't actually need to put anything on here. We don't need any sealant or anything like that. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on this, to be honest. So yeah, I'm just going to put these on as is. Right, so I'm going to pop this on and put the cylinder back on, and then measure the squish again. And there's another way you can measure squish. Rather than jamming this down the hole, what you can do is you can tape a bit of solder onto the cylinder head. So we're going to do that, and I'll show you how that works.
kind of like a little S shape will be fine. Gets right to the edge like that, and hold it in place with a bit of tape. Obviously that's a little bit too much tape, but there you go. So now we can install the piston, the cylinder again on top of this, and then give it a kick through, and we can measure what the squish is without having to worry, have we got to the end of the are we right up against the cylinder wall. So let's pop that back on. So we'll pop this one on. It should be 0.75. Make sure we've got our rings lined up. Okay, bit of a fiddle. We don't need to reinstall the power valve for this, because it's not compression, it's just squish. But what we do need to do is we do need to do these up to the correct torque setting, which is 27 Newton meters.
27.
So that takes okay. Oh.
Okay, now that's done, all we need to do is just kick it over. And that's crushed the solder. So now we can take it off and have a look.
Now you can see the solder is squished, so let's take that off and we'll go and measure it.
So that's what came out. It's the alternative way of measuring squish. And what have we got? Whoa, we've got quite a lot. 1.25. Check the other side. Yeah, so we're going to use the 0.5. Yeah, I mean that's like 1.3 there. 118. Again, to the limit of my measurement capability, but I would say that's probably around 1.2. So we will try the same thing again. Throw that in the bin, and we'll use the 0.5 gasket and see what reading that gives us.
Okay, so let's grab another bit of solder. Let's take a look and see how squished this looks.
Right, let's have a look and see what this one is. Well, it's about 1mm, which is in spec for what we want. So that's good. The good news is we can bring the that cylinder down to 1mm squish, and then we can see if we've solved the leak. Okay, let's do that. So the most important thing to do when you're assembling finally is check that you haven't left any solder on there. So just put a little bit of 2-stroke oil. This will be the final assembly. Final assembly, I've said that so many times. Now we're going to put the power valve back in, and remember to do so we need the piston at bottom dead center. So I use the number 0 stick. Yeah, it's a bottom dead center, and then it's just a matter of wiggling this in. There you go. That there says the one I'm doing up, and it's 0.5 kilograms per meter, which works out as about 5 newton meters, a little bit under. So I've got a smaller wrench here that I've set to 5. We can do these up to the proper torque. If I set it to do up, that is. There you go, that's all you need. And on the other side, literally not much at all. With 5, that's it. So get the spark plugs back in and let's give it a leak test. We're coming back from the following day and we've still got pressure holding here. So we have fixed that base gasket leak, which is excellent news. It's now airtight, so I can finally start putting this TZR back together again. Not going to say I'm going to go back a step or two along the way, normally do with this bike. This has been an absolute interesting project so far. It's been my only project bike and it will be my last project bike, I can guarantee that. But yeah, I mean, it looks looks absolutely fine. It's absolutely holding. So really pleased about that. We can make some progress, and hope it has been useful for you to see the two different ways of measuring squish. And most importantly, the bit about not dropping a load of solder down your transfer ports, because I know somebody who's done that, don't we, Gav? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and next time we'll start putting this thing back together and turning it back into a motorcycle. How about that? Take care.